So hi everyone, I'm really happy to be here today. And my name is Daniel, and today I'm going to talk with you about my approach to software engineering and how exactly I see software engineers in particular and the culture around them, and how I think it should be done today in our modern days. So you all know our main part of the day-to-day or our core role is actually to code, okay? This is what we do. We love to do it. I think that there are even, cases where people have stigmas about developers that this is the only thing that developers can do. And today I'm going to suggest a new approach that I really believe in, where software engineers are not only coders, but a lot more, okay? And I believe that software engineers in today's organization should have lots more skills. For instance, they should have an eye for the product and understand the product. They should understand the business and to understand the business metrics, and a lot of more skills that are super important to have a really significant impact in their organizations. And I think that once you as a developer have these skills, you suddenly see that your environment changes. Even if it's just you that are changing, this fuels up a change in your environment and in the team's culture and in the company's culture. And suddenly you see that things are more free because people trust you. They know you have the eye for the product and that you'll make good decisions. And you see that things are more transparent since everyone, including the managers and everyone around you, understand that you need to have the data, you need to have the numbers in order to get good decisions. And overall, I think that the most important part is that once things are like that, it's a circle that fuses itself, and suddenly the culture makes every other engineers in the team be like that as well. And I think this is good because once the environment is like this, and once each of us as developers have these skills, you suddenly feel that you have more ability to make more impact. And for me, this is my motivation. I want to make the most significant impact I can make. So before starting, a few words about myself. So as I said, my name is Daniel. In the last year, I've been leading the development at the Pulse. Beforehand, I was leading both mobile teams and web teams at IBM, at XAV. And I think that the thing that I'm passionate about the most is about, cultivating software engineering culture and building up teams. And this is exactly what I'll try to do today, to share my perspective and my experience about it with you. And before I start, a little disclaimer, an environment where everything is super free, people can do actually what they want, they have the power to do it, and they have the freedom, is not like a perfect world. There are things that can mess up, and once you give so much power for everyone, things do mess up. But after living with multiple approaches, I think that today I can't imagine myself and my team working in any other way. And this is exactly what I want to share with you today. So the first thing I want to talk about is a really important concept that I believe that every software engineer today must embrace. So, like Batman, we need to have personal ownership about the things we do. And let's take an example and understand how pushing personal ownership and encouraging it will do good in your team. So before I'll dive into the example, a bit of context about my world. So the Pulse is actually a project management tool that helps teams to work together to get their tasks done. And we are a SaaS product. It means that we need to be available up and running 24/7. We are moving really, really fast, okay? We have around 20 deploys a day to production. Our team is growing really, really rapidly. This year alone, we doubled our size. And for this example, we treat quality, the quality of code and the quality of product, as something that is not we don't have QA, we don't have one specific person that is responsible for the quality. Rather, we see it as a team effort, as a shared responsibility. And when you run fast, at least we suffered a lot from quality issues. We had lots of things that messed up during us running so fast, and there were times that it even felt like, with every step that we take forward, we take few steps back. And we really wanted to change it. And of course, we talked about it and we did a lot of things, but a really important change occurred when Guy, one of our developers, which is actually here today, came back from the weekend and introduced a new widget to our development dashboard. Okay, this widget actually depicts how automation coverage we have it for the server side and for the client side. And you can see on the y-axis the coverage, and on the x-axis, each dot or each circle is actually a push to the master branch. And let's see what happens when someone pushes a code that increases the coverage of the specs. Okay, so this is the real sound that our dashboard is making in the office. And you can understand how much, it became part of our culture, this sound, because when we hear it, everyone turns their head to the monitor, to the dashboard that we have in the office, and looks for who did what. And you can see that each circle here is personal, okay? It's the person who did the action. And once things are personal, people feel that they get recognition for good things that they are doing. And also, we couldn't help ourselves, and we had to do something for someone that decreases the conversion as well. No! So you get this sound, and immediately, people look to see who is the criminal. I'm just kidding. And of course, people are accountable. And I think that this is just a small example about, something that every one of us can do in his day-to-day. And of course, I don't believe that this alone can solve quality issues, okay? But I can really honestly say that once we had it, our coverage went up to the roof, and people start looking at it as a challenge. And I think that the outcome of things like that, not necessarily this example, but any example that drives a change in this way, is that, first of all, once you have the personal ownership, when things are personal, people care, and people feel they get recognition about their action and that they are accountable. And this is huge, okay? It makes a huge difference in how people look at things. The second thing, which is true to all dashboards that you put in a centralized place in the office, is that you create a focus, okay? Once you have these numbers in front of your face in a public place, everyone suddenly understands that this is a KPI that we want to improve. This is something that they'll get recognition for improving. And the most important part, I think, here is that, most of us here are developers, and I think that this is a great example where you can take a really, nice initiative and to put down a really small effort. This dashboard wasn't so elaborated at first, and, it was very, very basic and not so pretty. And together with, the initiative and the small effort, this developer actually, Guy, made a change, a cultural change in our environment, and it's amazing. And I think it's very, very powerful. And in this example, we saw how you can take your technical skills and solve a problem which is, relates to code, the code quality, right? And I think that the second thing I want to talk about is that we as the developers have a skill. We have skill of coding. We can do a lot with it, and we can even solve problems that are not necessarily technical. Okay, we are all engineers, and we like to see problems and try to solve them like engineers with code. So I think that the second part, which is really important for software engineer, is to be able to look at the broader sense of things and to try and take his skills to problems that are not necessarily technical. So let's see an example. We started working in Agile, 2 weeks iteration, pretty much standard about a year ago. And when we started working in iterations, this is how we felt like, in the beginning. It was like chaos, People didn't know what to do, where to look, what should I do now? And it's a chaos and, not so fun. And if we'll take a more scientific approach of looking at it, this graph actually depicts how our iterations look like at the beginning. So you can see in this line that is currently with the red arrow that this is the amount of tasks that were completed during the iteration. You can see that all the tasks were completed in the last 2 days. Okay, in the beginning we didn't complete anything. We worked and worked and worked. I guess that probably most of you are familiar with this phenomenon. And this is how it looked like. It has a negative correlation to our happiness, okay? Because in the last 2 days, it was like chaos. People introduced so many changes, it was hard to track. And of course, another issue that we had is, you can see here in the dashed line, that as the iteration progresses, more and more tasks will, make their way into our iteration plan, which felt like that we couldn't have a right focus and prioritization because we had so many tasks at the end of the iteration that we couldn't even know what to do first. So again, we tried to apply our coding skills and to solve it with technical, in a technical way. So this time, Michael, which is not here today, you guessed it, he did another dashboard. And again, it was something that he did like on 2 weekends. And on the left side, you can see a snapshot of our iteration. You can see exactly how much tasks are done in progress. You can see a red dashed line in the battery that says where should we be according to the iteration phase. And on the right side, you can see a graph that depicts for each day how many tasks have been started, completed, and on the blue line above, the iteration scope. And I think like the previous dashboard, it was amazing, okay? It suddenly created an effect that I like to call dashboard talks. I don't know how much of you have dashboards in your office, but when you have such a thing, suddenly you see people that are arriving in the morning to the office, drink their coffee, stop by the TV, and start discussing about it. And it's amazing. And it raises the awareness in a way that I couldn't think of another way that would do the same impact. Of course, it didn't solve all the problems, but it did become part of our DNA. And we use this dashboard in our daily, we use this dashboard in our retrospectives, and more importantly, it suddenly became a conversation. And I think that the most amazing thing about it, it's that it took only a decision and a really small effort, and again, one developer that impacted a process, okay? Not necessarily a technical thing, and make a real change. So I think these are all very important and true. You need to have personal ownership about the things you do. You need to think how can you apply your technical skills to solve problems that are not necessarily technical. And the most important thing about us as software developers is that we should treat ourselves not just as coders, okay? And I believe that in today's organizations, of course, it changes from product to product, but from my point of view, I think that today a developer must have an understanding in the business and understanding of the product. So probably there are a lot of people here that heard sentences like, you're just a developer. You don't need to understand. This is the spec, just implement it, like code monkeys and things like that. And many people in the organizations, in different organizations, look at developer this way. But I really believe that after working both in corporate and in startup, I really believe that every environment will appreciate you more as a developer once you'll have a more wide range view of what's happening and a bigger understanding about things other than code. And as a matter of fact, I think that it's already a must in many of the companies that are leading today the market. So why is it important? Why is it important for me as a software engineer to understand things that are not technical? Okay, so I think that once you have an understanding of the business and you have an understanding of the product and other things that are not necessarily code, you suddenly have the right context. You understand what your actions, the context of your actions and your tasks. Another important thing is that when you have this right context, you get to better decisions. And these decisions shouldn't be only the, high-level decisions of the managers and things like that. It's everyday decisions that we make tens of times a day when we decide to put a button here or there, or where we decide to do this task or another task. And eventually, when you have better decisions, you make more impact, and the same amount of work and the same amount of effort suddenly creates a bigger impact. And it's amazing, and for me personally, this is my fuel, When I look at my work, I want to make sure that I'm doing the most impactful thing I can do at any given moment. So you can say, okay, I understand, it's important, and it's nice, but I don't know nothing about product, and I certainly know nothing about the business. So why should anyone in the organization or in the company listen to me, okay? So I really believe that there are ways that you, as a software developer, can take and make yourself a thought leader in the company and make yourself be seen as one that can have additional values to the organization and to the team, and not just code. Okay, and let's go over a few ways that can help you build yourself to be that software engineer. So I think that the first important aspect is to own the numbers, which means that when you have data that supports your decisions, okay, suddenly, first of all, you feel confident about the things you do, which is super important. The second thing is that gradually people around you start feeling more comfortable and more trust in you, which is amazing. And there are many ways to get data and to make the data on your side, but before we dive in, there's a sentence in our organization that one of the marketing guys really like to say, you know, without data, you're just a guy with an opinion, and I think it's really true. And let's talk about ways that you can get the data on your side. So the first way that everyone knows is to A/B test. You know, one A/B test worth 1,000 of words. And I want to share one example with you, which I believe that you can take a lot from. So in the Pulse, we aim to be a tool for really, be a very versatile tool for lots of types of companies. It can be a real estate agency, it can be like lawyer's firm, it can be a software engineering team, and so on. And our biggest challenge is to make people that use our product for the first time understand what the tool can do for them, because we have like really small denominator, common denominator between our customers. So over the years, we tried many things to solve this problem, to understand how can we do better onboarding. And we had lots of failures, okay? We tested a lot of things and failed, things that didn't manage to move the needle. Until one of our developers, Asaf, which is here, I made sure that everyone is here from the presentation today. So, okay, so until one of our developers, Asaf, came up with an idea, let's do templates, okay? Let's offer templates. It sounds really trivial. Let's give our customers templates. They will see and understand how customizable the product is, and they see the value, and how can they use it for themselves. He wanted to test it on 20% of the people. He said, give me 2 days, I will do it. It won't be so, you know, nice looking. It not necessarily be finished, but it will work, and we'll get a signal from it. And we went for it, and we saw an amazing improvement just because of the screen you saw earlier. We got a 32% uplift in our conversion to paying, which means a lot. It was an uplift it made the entire company go up in terms of performance. And I think that, you know, we have like lots of examples that we failed in, and this one was successful. And the most important part is to understand the principles of how to test things and how to make sure that you can do this kind of test methodically until you find something, one thing, that makes the difference. So the first thing is to focus. You need to understand what you are trying to optimize, not to shoot all away. And the second thing is always to look for the thing that will allow you to invest the minimum amount of effort to get a signal, to understand if it's something that worth the effort or not. I think that no test should be perfect on the first day. It should be really, really fast, so you'll be able to test many, many things. Another important aspect is that sometimes you just need to do it, okay? We talked about the templates, we talked about other things, until one developer took an action and did it. And after 5 minutes in production, we already understood so many things that we didn't know before we tried it. And as an engineers, we sometimes fall in love with our code, regardless to the numbers. And I think that this is not something that we really need to remember, that, you know, the code is just the method, and we need to understand and be driven by the impact that our code does. It means that even if I wrote like the most beautiful code in the world, I don't want it to be affecting my decisions, and I want to make decisions because of the numbers and not because of the code behind it. And the last thing is that, you need to embrace failures. Okay, we had lots of failures before this successful example, and you need to understand that this is an iterative process, and you need to understand that each failing test, if it's done right, is a lesson, is something that you can take and do things in a smarter way next time. So we talked about having the data on your side. A second part, which relates to that can make you a thought leader and make you understand product better, is to get feedback directly from customers. And there are lots of ways to get feedback from customers. You can see, for instance, here, we have a broadcast inside our product that developers announce about new features and things that they did. First of all, it has likes, okay, which is addictive. Everyone is getting addicted to it, and you can see the personal ownership again, that the developer who developed the feature do the announcement. And more importantly, we get lots of comments from it. And the developer get direct feedback from the clients using this product, which is super valuable. And once he has this feedback, he has more knowledge, okay? And it gives him a lot of power. And there are a lot of ways to get feedback from customers directly. It shouldn't be necessarily like technical things. You can open a group in Facebook with your customers and talk with them. You can suddenly see discussions between developers and customers, and it's super engaging, and it makes you understand what are the fruits of your efforts, and how people are using your product. And you can even do something like live Q&A session with your customers. I can tell you that we did it for the first time a month ago, and it was eye-opening for me. Really amazing experience. So there are many ways that you can do to get feedback from customers. The most important part is to get this feedback. And once you have this feedback, you have a lot more knowledge about the product. Last thing about being such a thought leader and understanding the business and the product is understand the business. And for me, it sounds obvious that if you have a SaaS company and if you work in a SaaS company, you must understand the metrics that drive this company forward, okay? You must understand the business in order to get the right decisions and in order to get decisions in the right direction. So, for instance, this is a really cool example that I really like. Tal, one of our developers, worked really hard about a feature that is called the timeline. It allows people to manage Gantz interactively inside the product. And after releasing this feature, he came up with a suggestion. He said, okay, you know what? Not every of the customers have this feature. It's only for a certain plan. Why won't we do an upgrade promotion for it? And he built a form that you can see here. It took him 1 hour because we have all the things to build such kind of forms. And the effect of putting it up and live was amazing. After putting it live, 2 hours passed, and he became a different person. He sat in front of an analytics tool and just refreshed, to see the upgrades coming in. And there's nothing more satisfying to see your product, to see the things that you worked on and the impact they have on the business, and to see the amount of money coming in that would have been come in unless you did it and unless you take the decision. So I think this is just an example, but it shows how important it is that everyone will understand the business and understand how can they affect the company's performance in terms of business metrics. And I think that in many companies, this info is there. It's just not accessible, and there are ways that you can do in order to make this info accessible. For instance, we have a daily SMS that is sent to everyone in the company, and it says how many new paying companies we have, how many upgraded, how many left the company, and so on. And having such an SMS when you have the data is like one line of API call to Twilio. And the amazing thing about this SMS, that again, with such a small effort, you create a cultural change. Okay, we have this SMS on a daily basis on 7:30 a.m. in the morning. And when I was looking for examples for this presentation, I got lucky, and we had a day with a lot of new paying customers, a lot of new paying companies. And you can see that 2 minutes after the daily SMS, there was already a discussion in our group WhatsApp about it. And it's a discussion that started by one of the developers, and then people from the marketing, and then people for the business development and the customer success, and it's amazing because you suddenly understand the bigger picture and you have lots of more information that you can use to make yourself more impactful in your day-to-day. And I think that even if your company doesn't allow you to look at these numbers, maybe you need to convince them and talk with them and to make them understand that with this kind of information, your work will be a lot better, and eventually the company will do much better work as a whole. So we talked about understanding the business and the product, and I think that the last thing I want to talk about in terms of engineering culture, and a group of full-stack developers, or not necessarily full-stack, okay, that are constantly improving and learning. And I think it's a really important aspect of today's engineering. And we all know that there are many ways to learn, okay? We can read, we can go to meetups, and we can do a side project, and these are all super important. First of all, I believe that you can do it not just for coding. You can go for a meetup about marketing and about business and about product and make yourself stronger, and it will build you. And over time, you'll see that like any other skill, you get better at it, and it makes your work better. And I also feel that as software developers, we can take actions in our own hands, okay, and to affect everyone in our team. For instance, we do once or twice a month tech talks, which is just a talk where someone from the R&D or from anywhere else learns a subject, and after he learns this subject, he is doing a lecture for everyone else. So first of all, everyone learns from it, and it's amazing, and it's really, really fun. And second, the developer that actually do it, okay, suddenly becomes an authority for that matter. Okay, we had one of our developers talking about DevOps and talking about AWS and infrastructures and things like that. And since then, he's the authority for everything in that matter. And I think it's amazing, and it affects everyone around you. And there are examples where single developer even can affect a company roadmap. Okay, example I really like is from a close friend of mine. His name is Uri. He's a senior software engineer at Panaya, and he wanted to make an improvement in the UI infrastructure. Okay, but he didn't have the platform, to do it, and he didn't know how to do it. He thought about an original idea. He sent an invitation to all the engineers in his team, and he said, "Okay, let's meet after hours, 6 o'clock. I don't need a permission from anyone to meet after hours, and I'll bring pizzas. And if you want to talk about our UI infrastructures, you're invited." And he was so surprised that many of the people came, and they started working on POCs on their time about new versions of React and Angular. And today, after they did these POCs, they came with these POCs to the management and showed them to them. And they were really excited about it, and today it's part of the roadmap. And I think that the most important part is that Uri, in this case, understood that he has the power. He can make a change. He can make a difference, and it's not only about code. Okay? So everyone can do this change. To sum things up, I think that there are a lot of things to say about this topic and a lot of things that we can talk about. But the most important thing that I try to remember each day is that as developers, we are the only ones in the organization that have the powers and the skills to think about something in the morning and make it happen in the same day. Okay? Designers can do it, product can do it, and if we understand that we have this power and embrace it and build ourselves to be a lot more than just coders, we can make a really significant impact. Thank you.